Alright, here's where we're at. Now after I made sure that the glue was thoroughly dry, I just gave it a day to dry. And because I want the pieces to be firmly held together by the glue. And as I've stated with other things, it's not the glue that holds the final project together. It just holds it together long enough for me to get some work done on it. But what I did is I took my stitching chisel and I went through, put chisel in, and banged it through with the mallet as far as it'll go. Now, this leather stacked up here is actually too thick for the chisel to go all the way through. So I'm going to have to finish the holes with my awl. And what they'll do is, since I already put these holes in as far as they'll go, is they'll guide the awl. So as long as I made sure that this was straight and perpendicular to the surface of the leather, so will the awl. And then just push that on through like that. Now the reason I used the stitching chisel to pound these through before I glued this final piece on was because this piece actually has the belt loop on it. So if I glued it up like that and had everything put together and then sat it down and tried to get these straight, that won't let me. It's not solid enough. It'll move around and it'll be pretty much not really possible to make sure that I get these holes punched straight through. Besides, it don't go all the way through to the back piece. I'm going to have to go through and punch all those holes with my awl. Anyway, it's time to glue these two pieces together. Once again, going to use my Tanner's Bond contact cement. There we go. Oh, wait a minute, let me get something. After I glue these together, I'm going to want to put it on a piece of glass to ensure that if I accidentally get any glue on the outside of it, that it doesn't stick to this paper. But it should be alright. This glue can be kind of messy, but it should be fine. Basically, all I do is brush on a coat of glue on both sides. It's both sides. Make sure to cover the whole thing. Oh, geez, looks like my brush is falling off. Oh, there it goes. That's alright. I got another can of glue. I'll just use the brush out of that. Right now, I can go ahead and use it as is to spread the glue. Nothing fancy, just a layer of glue. Try to keep it even. Now, actually, before I put the glue on this, I guess I should have said it before I got glue all over it. I took my scratch awl and I scratched it up to give the glue something to bite into. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and put the glue on this piece and we'll be back to put them together. Alright, it's tacked up and it's just about right to stick it together. What I did is I took the cap off the new can and put it on the old can, and then I took the cap off the old can that the brush broke off of and put it on the new can. So I'll just, switch caps. It'll be fine. Anyway, let's get this stuff out of the way. It's time to stick these together. Just going to line it up. And I want to make sure it sticks out a little bit further than this front piece, because once I sand it all back, I want it to be really nice. Just put it in place, and once I'm happy with it, I can go ahead and push these pieces together. Okay, that looks good right there. Now again, there's no real stress. This leather's not like trying to pull itself apart, so I don't have to clamp it or anything. I can just leave it as is and leave it sit overnight and work on it tomorrow. And tomorrow what I'll do is, again, where did I put it? I know it's over here. There it is. I'm just going to take my awl and punch these holes on through and get this thing stitched together. And after it's stitched, we'll get these edges done. Get them sanded, get them finished, get the dye touched up, get them burnished. I want these edges to be like outstanding. Touch everything up that needs touched up. Get that final top coat on it, making sure I get it down into the stitches to help to protect and strengthen those. And we'll be back for that. Well, I got the holes punched through, but it took some doing. On this one, with this awl, I was punching the holes through and the awl blade pulled out completely. I stuck it back in with some super glue with some of this, let's see, this stuff, hoping that that will hold the blade in place. And I let it sit overnight. In the meantime, I use this one. This isn't one of my favorites. It's got such a tiny handle and I've got big hands, so it's not very easy for me to handle it, but it did do the job of pushing the holes on through. The only problem with this one is when I twist it, the awl blade, can you hear that? That's the awl blade turning in the handle. And even though it punches the holes, what I need to do is to waller out the hole a bit, to stretch it a bit with the awl again when I go to stitch it. So because the leather is so thick, and that helps to get the needle and the thread through if I waller it out a bit. So I have another awl on order, and it's the kind where you tighten down the collar on it and it holds onto the blade. But in the meantime, I'm hoping that this one will hold long enough to get the stitching done. It's not that big of a stitch line, but you know, it is going through a lot of leather. I did not expect both awls to fail on the same day. I didn't expect an awl to fail at all. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and start my stitching and cross my fingers. I don't know if you ever try stitching with your fingers crossed. It's kind of tricky. Just kidding. See, I'm going to stick that right like that. Start on this part. Alright, let me get my thread ready. Okay, let me explain this real quick. The reason I need a decent awl is because the thickness of this leather, how much leather I got here, what I need to do is come back with my awl and waller out the holes. Now the holes won't stay that way. They'll close up after a few minutes. So I can only do a few at a time. But you see, I'll put the awl in and give it a twist to stretch that hole open a little more. And that's all it does, is it stretches the hole, and then the hole comes back in and grips the thread. So while it's stretched, I can go ahead and do my stitch. Because it's not like just stitching a couple of hunks of 9/0 together. I can't just go in, wallow the key or the needle around and have it work that way. Because of the thickness of the thread. It's just the way I do it. It takes a little longer, yeah, but that's all part of it. All part of the fun of hand stitching. And like I said before, I don't do this for a living. It's just something, it's a hobby. And I like making nice things and getting them out to people. Let's see, okay, now I just found out where I ended because that hole is really stiff. Move this back a little bit. Go. Take my awl. It's really stiff there. Wallow that hole out a little bit. And I'm going to keep it going.
Thank you for calling the West Virginia State Tax Department. Please note that all calls may be monitored or
just 4 or 5 at a time.
Currently 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday.
And so far, keep your fingers crossed. This all blade seems to be holding with that super glue. Well, we'll be back in a minute. All right, I'm coming around the corner here. Now what I've been doing is I've been putting the second stitch over top of the first stitch like that. And that gives me a nicely angled stitch. It makes for a strong stitch line and it looks good too. I've been going along, wallowing out a few holes and stitching them, and that's been working fine. And that's why I need my awl to work, because if I wasn't doing that, I would have to be, here we go, using these things to push the needles through and to pull them back out instead of doing it by hand. There we go. So let's just go over this real quick. Oops. And I'm being clumsy for the camera. The first needle goes in, second needle goes on top. Make the little cross here, and then the second needle goes over the first needle. Ow! And then pull it snug. And just keep going until I run out of wallowed out holes, set my needles down, and then wallow out some more holes. Oh, you can do that, yeah. And I'm not casting over either. I'm just putting them through and snugging them down. And keep your fingers crossed that my awl holds out all the way to the end, because so far.
Is that the same one we used yesterday?
Yep, that's the one that fell apart, and I glued the blade back in with super glue. So I'm going to keep going, and we'll come back. Well, that's all done then. And let me show you something. What I did, in fact, I'll show you with my awl. The awl held up. That I got dye on my hands because I haven't top coated it yet. When I stitched this piece on, I double stitched it across the top and the bottom, so it wouldn't have a visible back stitch and it would have a consistent look all the way around. So when I stitched the whole rest of this together, I double stitched it on the sides. So this piece on the front has a consistent look double stitched. Because when I finish the stitch line, I do a back stitch and then burn the threads on the back side, and that holds it together. The whole rest of this is all stitched together, single stitch. And next up, I'm going to sand these edges. Then we'll start doing our edge work. And I gotta tell you, I am in love with the way this knife fits. That is just, it's a beautiful thing. I love it when a plan comes together. And it is a lefty, so yeah, it's a lefty. And I like the way that knife fits. Anyway, when we come back, we're gonna do some edge work. I don't know how far along I'll be. Sometimes I just want to get some work done without messing with the camera and doing all the editing and uploading and that kind of stuff. I just want to grab it and get some work done on it. I do like to put out the updates, but like I said, sometimes I just want to get some work done. Anyway, next time we're together, we'll see how much work I've done. See you then.